Hi everyone, welcome to our woodland walk for the month of November, Yew Tree, and hello Finn.
Hi there. Hi, everybody.
So Finn, thank you for joining us. We have Finn with us, who is our ACER musician, composer and musician, and has created the music for the tree journeys and the music for the sharing circles that we have, and some other beautiful pieces of music that we sometimes use in events and things. And yeah, it's really lovely to have you here, Finn. Thank you for coming.
Mm, yeah, thanks for having me, Ros.
So the music, the music for the tree journeys is obviously many people that are listening to this will know it very intimately, and it will have had a really profound effect. And I know from talking to ACEs that the music has been an incredibly powerful ally on their psychedelic integration journey. And
Mm,
I think many people will just be really, really interested to hear a bit about you, your story, how you came to create such beautiful music, so that the next time they listen to a tree journey, they have that extra bit of kind of color and dimension. So Finn, if you could just start off by just kind of telling us a bit about you, your journey to get to where you joined ACER as our musician and composer. Like how, yeah, tell us a bit about your journey to there.
yeah, so it's nice to hear that. It's nice to think that people have been enjoying the music via ACER. It really ended up being like the dream job for me. I don't even know how. I don't even know how I ended up kind of like in a composition kind of role, and I never even thought I knew how much I'd enjoy it. Um, so yeah, I just want to. It just I just feel a lot of gratitude for being involved in ACER and having had that opportunity to write so much music as well for you guys. And yeah, I guess we'll get back to that point at the end. But yeah, it really was a kind of dream job. And even if I didn't compose any more music, it's been such a cool thing and chapter in my life to spend a few years like primarily composing music. At school, I got really bad marks in my composition in at college and GCSE, and it kind of put me off. It kind of made me think I couldn't compose anything. And yeah, I kind of think that's rubbish nowadays. And if you have an idea, then you can build from it. And so yeah, don't believe what they tell you at school.
Yeah, I have to interrupt you with that because I'm just amazed. Like, wow, how amazing that you could have what a turnaround. And it's so good to remember that when, yeah, when thinking about the things that we can or cannot do. Just imagine that you getting bad marks for composition and then without really that much formal training, which of
Mm.
course we're going to get onto the journey, but you just having the innate talent and skill to be able to do it with really hardly any resources or high tech equipment. So, yeah, that don't listen to what people tell you at school.
Yeah, and the music I write, written fused music, I really love. Like I just love writing it. It's the kind of music I would write anyway if I had previously had the discipline to sit down and write a 30-minute piece with no real like goal to it. Um, and I think it's about that. It's about if you like it and you're interested, then just do it. Because I think at school it was just a lot about ticking boxes and it was marked or not to very specific criteria. And I even remember one of my compositions and it wasn't so far away from the kind of music I'd be writing now. And I'd have liked it at the time, but it wouldn't have ticked these boxes. So you get a bad mark and then you kind of get told you're bad at it. So um, yeah, nice to have had an opportunity. So my journey in music. So I started playing the guitar when I was 11, which is long ago enough now. It didn't feel like that young when I started. But I went to school and got free music lessons. And I remember my very first lesson with my teacher at the time, and I was really into like Nirvana and System of a Down and like heavy punk and like grunge and things. And then I was like, I want to learn this, and the teacher was like, maybe you should start with classical guitar. And I was like, I don't want to learn that. I was like, that sounds rubbish. And he kind of convinced me I should just give it a little go and see how it went, and it would be a good it'd be a good bridge for other styles. So I so I kind of started learning classical, and I don't even really remember it now, but I guess something must have stuck, and I must have really enjoyed some aspect of it. So I stuck with the classical guitar, and I was really kind of rigidly a classical guitar player for the next probably about the next 12 years. Um, and I had something else to say there.
Okay, so you were saying your music, so sis, you were into like heavy stuff. Nirvana, System of a Down, your guitar teacher said classical guitar, um, and
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, this is it. So yeah, trying to think back to it now, it's hard to recall like my interest and passion in the guitar. And it must have just been such a natural thing to me that I just enjoyed playing it. And I think about it like I think the things you learn when you're a kid are like real gifts because there's not much choice. And like now as an adult, if I choose to try and learn something, I find it like it's incredibly hard. At the level of discipline, finding the time, like motivating yourself, having to see like very small incremental improvements over quite a long period, like can be quite demotivating. And I'm like, wow, learning things as an adult is actually quite tough. But then I think back to learning the guitar as a kid and like there was no effort involved. And it was just this thing I really enjoyed doing. And I'm like, wow, that was really a gift that I would want to do that as a child. Yeah. And I think you definitely can learn as an adult, but also just fair play, it's actually quite hard just finding that kind of discipline. Um, so I'd learned classical guitar and then I went on basically doing music. I was never that good at music. Like my ears never been amazing, but I always just really loved playing and I just loved listening to music. And I always just felt it was a passion of mine. And I went on, did college, and then I even went to university and studied music, which at the time was a bit of I was not really knowing what to do. I had interest in philosophy at the time, to some degree, kind of psychology, and then music. And these are interests of mine that are still really, really active now. But I decided to do music, and like we said earlier, it's a lot of kind of jumping through hoops, like writing long 5,000 word essays on like very pedantic points in an old piece of opera, and it's like again not really didn't really excite me. But I kept the classical guitar going throughout that period, and really things kicked off after I left university. Like so, music was always like this backbone of mine. Like I loved it. I never envisioned working with it in any way, but I just loved it. I just loved playing music. I always felt like I was a bit of a fake playing the classical guitar. Like people would say you're a musician, and I always found I didn't believe that because learning classical music, you basically learn notation and you play it. So now I can see that there's a lot of creativity in interpreting a piece of music, like a classical piece of music. But at the time, I felt like I wasn't really creating anything. I wasn't writing my own music. I wasn't improvising. I wasn't writing songs. So I always felt like a bit of a fake in that regard. So when I was 23, I finished university. I went on like a year-long trip across the world, hitchhiking across Europe for 6 months, and then to India and Nepal. And I brought my guitar with me, and I made a real effort to just try and play with as many people as I could just to try and learn how to like improvise a little bit and just break those walls that I felt were kind of I wanted to be an actual musician. And that for me at the time was like just be able to adapt and play freely and like, be a bit more open with it. So that was a really good year for me when I really started to open my playing up, to play with other people. And yeah, and then this is where life just got kind of totally mental, really. I think I'd planned to go to London and maybe get a job in music, and it just wasn't going. And then I kind of came back to England, and I ended up getting involved in like plant medicine ceremonies with ayahuasca. And I'd at university, really the most kind of interesting part of that few years for me was I met a girl there who I kind of fell in love with, and she was just really into psychedelics. And I was very atheist before that, kind of intellectually atheist, like I know it, of course there's no God. And the psychedelics, like my experimentation at university and meeting this girl, like it just kind of opened me up to this bigger question of like I could feel there was something else going on and I couldn't figure it out. And I just had this burning question in me of like, what's going on? Like, what is reality? Like, what's really happening here after a few like very confusing, very unintegrated, very like gung ho psychedelic experiences that I suppose led me on a kind of path, but were somewhat reckless and were hard when I was young, 23 even to deal with them. But they really just left me with this big open question of what's going on. And then traveling around the world, I had that question too. And I think if anything, it got just more and more intense, that question. Like went in India and I experienced like, I felt like I experienced telepathy, like not in me, but in other people. And I was at psytrance festivals and I felt like I could see people teleporting. And I was like looking for answers. I was just getting so many more questions. And And I'd kind of given up on the psychedelics. I just thought, okay, they've opened me up, like they're not really serving me anymore. Like I kind of shut it down, but I will try ayahuasca if I get an opportunity, because it's kind of the mother plant, it's the master teacher, and if there's answers to be had, perhaps that's a psychedelic that will open me up to those answers. So I ended up being involved in a plant medicine retreat center, and then that really, yeah, I kind of connected with, I suppose now I'd call it God, a sense of unconditional love and perfection, which is really what I wanted to know if that was true, the oneness, the unconditional love, like that's really what I wanted to feel. And I really felt that. But I also felt the other end of that spectrum, something akin to hell, I suppose. And yeah, and I left that weekend retreat like, okay, I've got some answers. I've opened up a lot more doors than I expected, but I kind of felt what I wanted to feel. Cool, that's me kind of done. Time to go and just get a job and live my normal life. And I kind of got invited back to this center to play the sitar. And yeah, and before I know it, that was kind of my life. And for the next 7 years, I was involved in this plant medicine center, which was stunningly beautiful and endlessly challenging. Um, yeah. And alongside this, I was living in a van. I kind of went full alternative and I wanted to get a van, and I lived in my van with some friends I made, and they're amazing musicians. And I lived alongside them the whole time, and we play music together. And I'd go off to the retreat and I'd be in a supportive role in the center where I'd play a lot of music as well. And me and my good friend Sean, and we were together at the time, like we'd play a lot of music there. Um, and yeah, it was just another, from framing this as a kind of musical journey, I suppose, just incredibly opening. Like I started to try and learn to sing there. Like I've always been very resistant to my voice and shy with my voice, and it really forced me to kind of sing. And we were saying earlier, I wouldn't consider myself a singer still, but I'm much less afraid to start singing now. Um, so that was a massive part of my journey. I'd have times where I'd play the guitar for like an hour, just kind of improvise, mixing between composition and movement. And so it was really a, mm, musically, it was a massive journey for me being in the center. On a spiritual level and a kind of psychological and emotional level, it was also insanely huge. And it felt, I suppose that now I'd call it, without getting into too much specifics there, but a trial by fire, really. Um, just opening a lot of doors, facing a lot of things. And I also eventually came to the same place I had years ago of like, okay, feel I've reached a limit with this. I've reached a limit about what questions this is going to answer for me. And I made a move to step away from this center probably about 3 years ago now, which was a massive decision for me. And I still had unanswered questions at this point. And I left that center really not knowing what to. I was in a kind of state of spiritual desperation where I still hadn't really resolved the kind of polarity of duality, let's say, like good and evil, I suppose, was where my mind would go to on a very kind of. I mean, this is a very deep topic, isn't it? So I'll kind of keep it light for now. We'll see how it goes. But my
Our
mind would go to.
community is here for it, Finn. You know, we
Okay,
love this. We talk about this. This is our stuff. So yes, you
yeah,
go like
okay, cool, yeah, I'm in the right place. Like
yes.
it was like, yeah, on a very fundamental, like how to resolve like good and evil, I suppose, and this feeling of unconditional love that I'd experienced. And there's also this overwhelming feeling of separation and almost doom and hell, and just the reconciling of these energies, this duality. And you know, trying to understand that. And also part of me, you're kind of getting that you're kind of beyond the mind as well, but just trying to find a bit of peace with it. And I left that center with this still very much unresolved in me. And I really yeah, and I really kind of just put a prayer out to anything that would listen about, I just need a bit of guidance. And yeah, and guidance came in kind of multiple ways. Like on a spiritual level, I kind of found teachers just on YouTube that would just talk very directly truth about truth, I suppose, like liberation. And I kind of just single pointedly harnessed my willpower and energy towards truth, to really wanting to know truth, and that kind of slowly morphed into wanting to know God. Um, Not in any Christian way particularly, but just it's probably the word that feels the most powerful for me. Like with the universe, the great mystery, oneness, truth, whatever you want to call it. But God for me kind of encapsulates that feeling of just this overwhelmingly incomprehensible beauty and intelligence of life and creation, the cosmos. And I feel God just makes my skin tingle a little bit. So it kind of became the single pointed focus into wanting to know God really. And the last 3 years has been just navigating that road. Again, that could be a long conversation. It's kind of come back to just surrendering to this moment, to being present. All roads kind of lead to being present. So right here, right now, which is the last thing my mind wants to do. It's the last thing. It's like, no, there's got to be more than that. It's not that simple. So, but I'm in a kind of place where I went off to meditate a lot. I went to really try and go deeper in the way I could feel was a direct path, like meditation, like how else to really go. So I spent a lot of time in monasteries and Buddhist centers, and then there's only so long I could kind of be there before there's that sense of life kind of pulling me back. And I suppose now it's bringing that meditative space into life, and I'm in a phase where we spoke, but I just bought a little bit of land, a very small bit of land with my partner. I'd like to help run some meditation groups, do more music, maybe some singing groups, so yeah, life is calling me back, but I would say that the Sufis have this kind of burning heart desire for the lover to be reunited with the beloved, and I say that's still my fire, I suppose. But I'm trying to kind of not see so much separation between being in a Buddhist center meditating and being on my land gardening or wanting to record music or something. So yeah, it's still a bit of a balancing, but just kind of and when I get confused, I just bring everything back to here, bring everything back to now, the sensation in my body, the sounds in the space, and just trusting that here's all there is and just being present. So I'm almost there, I think. So that was a kind of, because this for me, like, yeah, my path and my music, they're always just kind of holding each other really. So there's no difference between them. And leaving the center, that's the kind of more spiritual path, I suppose, that opened up for me. And then alongside that, so I left the center like really just knowing it was the right thing to do, trusting everything would work out, having no money, no fallback plan, anything. And we had actually met Ros that summer, and we'd kind of connected and yeah, developed like a nice bond quite quickly. And I just had it in my head. I was like, just reach out to Ros and just see if she has any work going. And I had no idea what I expected, and I just felt to, and I messaged you, and then you happened to be developing ACER at that time and kind of looking for someone to maybe make a bit of music. So you invited me in and said, would I consider like trying to make a piece of music? And yeah, I can disclose it now, but at the time I was like, oh my God, I've never done that before. But I was like, yeah, cool, I can make a piece of music. It's like, yeah, no sweat, it'll be easy. So yeah, I'd always like been playing around on the computer, like recording music for like my whole life. I never really finished anything or like actually developed a proper idea. So, but I loved the challenge. So I was like, yeah, I can do that. So I made this piece of music for you, which I think was the Hawthorne. And I guess, yeah, it's fair enough to say you liked it, and then you kind of invited me in to write all the music for ACER. And I mean, and that's been, yeah, that was a good couple of years really of very intense writing and recording and composing, and then yeah, and it's quieted down in the last year or so, but we're still very much in touch. And I think last December maybe I wrote a piece, or I'm forgetting about the times now, but or maybe even was it even the one this year in January. But yeah, I still feel very connected to
Early
you.
this year. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the veteran tree. This one.
There was, yeah, the veteran tree, which was for Super Bloom in the Aftermath, which was a forest coming back after a fire. And then
Mm.
before that, you did the Orison tree, which was the kind of the prayer tree, which was one before that. Yeah. So after we finished the 12 trees, we carried on finding other a few other kind of ways of creating tree journeys, and there's going to be many more. Anyone listening, don't worry. Of course, there'll be many more.
Yeah,
Sounds
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. I
completed,
can't wait.
never completed. It's always ongoing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I can't wait. And yeah, and and very recently also I've been feeling into what do I need? I kind of in that phase where I need to make some money again. These phases come and I kind of go, and then I've been kind of nomadic in my van, so it's not such a pressing issue. But I'm kind of settled, and I know, and I need to make a little bit of money, and that question's been on my mind. And yeah, the message, the signs, the messages I keep kind of getting are just music really. So I'm just excited to explore these different avenues. I'd like to compose more music. I want to create a new busking kind of set. Like sometimes I get asked to play gigs because people know me from a musical capacity, but because I'm mainly just a guitar player, like I don't really have what I'd consider like a thing I can do by myself. So I've kind of been inspired by, I've seen these kind of people. I basically bought myself a loop pedal and a groove box where you can make like kind of house and techno beats. So I want to kind of create like a kind of guitar based electronic-y, slightly more just interesting loopy thing. So that's one idea I have, and then take that out in the street and just enjoy doing that a little bit.
Yeah.
And maybe, like I said earlier, but run singing groups and meditation. So I feel music is really calling me again. It's like music's the thing I love. It's my passion. So why not? And if I can also be in service with music, and like with ACER, really, but be involved musically in something that has a service aspect or is offering something into the world, then even better. So I'm ready.
Oh, thank you, Finn. It's lovely hearing your journey. Even though I know a lot of that already, it's still lovely hearing you say it. And the context of the last part of your journey, which I haven't heard so much about the last few years, and your time with that real deep spiritual connection. And I mean, people here listening will be absolutely amazed that the tree journeys you created was the first time you'd been composing music in that way. And they'll be even more amazed. Finn, tell us a little bit about the technical setup. So when you were making the music for the tree journeys, tell us, because people will know as well. Like I also want to say that there's a lot of singing in there, and that some of the singing is you, and that also your good friend Shan that you mentioned as well. Some of the singing is her. So yeah, so your people will have heard you singing, but tell us about the setup for the whole thing.
Yeah, and just to give a big kind of respect and gratitude to Sean O'Gorman for singing on most of the tracks, that's the female vocal, and Phoebe
Done it.
Primlott for singing on the Ivy and the Prayer Tree.
Yeah.
Both stunning singers and just amazing people to work with, and so thank you to those guys for being involved. Um, the setup, yeah, I mean, man, I was still going with the same setup. I hope maybe even if people are interested in making music, it might be a tiny bit inspiring. I hope because I've been making all my music on a 2012 MacBook, which is actually just still going strong. And I just keep fixing it. It's like that shit where you just replace all the parts and isn't even the same thing anymore. So I'm just like I was recording in a most of the tree journeys in a either in my van, in a static caravan with a solar power connection for my inverter on an extension cable running through the window. With the 2012 MacBook, I have one Aston microphone, which is like, again, a couple of £100. It's not super high end, a kind of very low mid-level sound card. Um, yeah, and that's kind of it in terms of the technical thing. And then a little MIDI keyboard. But I just am still amazed at the fact that a 2012 MacBook can do anything still, let alone process and mix and 30-minute long piece of music. So yeah, I don't know if I want to say respect to MacBooks, but but this one in particular anyway. So
Yeah.
I mean, I hope it's inspiring just in the sense of equipment doesn't have to be a limiting factor in being creative and composing. That's the way I see it. And like, if you can get a couple of £100 old MacBook, then it's still possible. So hey, don't get me wrong. If I had loads of money, I'd probably upgrade all my equipment. But it's doing the job, yeah, I love it. And then I've just had just loads of string instruments. Like I always compose like surrounded by all my instruments. So I usually have like acoustic guitar, electric guitar, and a classical guitar. Just how I base everything normally. Like, and I'll kind of piece together like a collage of sounds. So I'll find kind of virtual synths or sampled instruments, and just depending on the brief you've given me, Ros, and I love working to your briefs as well. Like I wrote some more music recently, and I had to kind of create my own brief because I just found it was so hard to kind of work in this endlessly unlimited space. So I hadn't realized how much I appreciated having your beautiful scripts and briefs to work with until they weren't there. And I was like, oh yeah, shit, they were actually like really inspiring part of the process. So I'd sit and I'd read the brief, and I'd kind of get a collage of sounds that I felt suited the kind of, the emotion, or the atmosphere that wanted to be created. And then I'd maybe get the guitar, and then um, I honestly just wouldn't put much thought into anything really. I'd kind of get like, if I could go to the tree, I would, and if not, I'd get a picture of the tree, and I'd kind of just have it there, and I'd kind of then I just start, and then quite often it would just be the first idea that I had I would go with, and I mean it just kind of works, I suppose. Like, yeah, I think it just worked, and then parts would kind of flow together. I found the process of making music like that and recording, like, it was always a real roller coaster. I'd usually kind of start enthusiastic and enjoying what I did, and I'd start to see this pattern emerge. But like some days into it, I'd listen back and I'd just go, "This is just rubbish. This is just awful. Like, I'm so bad at making music." Like, I'd have this inner,
Oh,
I don't get this inner critic too too explicitly in lots of situations, but it would really come in that, and I'd hear the music back and I'd just think, "Oh, this is awful," and then it would shift again, and like, you might even give me some nice feedback or something, which would always be really helpful. But even if you didn't, in a day or two, it would just kind of shift. I just carry on, and I just learned to watch this pattern and just not take it too seriously, and just this there's I guess I don't yeah, people maybe can relate, but there's this interesting kind of relationship you have with your own creativity. Well, I do with music, and yeah, and it just seems you just see and hear it different every time you look at it. And maybe it's like from this kind of IFS perspective, different parts maybe come in to have their say on it,
yeah.
and it just almost meditative, just observing without reacting. This process of, some days I'm going to really love it what I'm doing, some days I'm not, and that's all okay. And
Mhm.
by the end of it, I'd always kind of sit back and be satisfied with what I'd done, and just
Mm.
see the fickleness of my mind and its like and dislike about everything, So it was yeah, definitely that would be my biggest challenge really, because I found composing fairly smooth, and I think sometimes people ask about like the process of things, like almost a kind of intellectual process, I suppose, and I never have put much thought into it. I think that's probably what I like about music, is you don't have to really think too much. Like, you could just start playing music, and it's complete in itself without that extra layer of kind of figuring it out. And yeah, I guess that's how I like to work really, is just try not to think too much and just start playing, see what happens.
Mm.
Mm.
Well, it was the whole experience, I think, of working together felt like such a kind of living example of flow. And because you mentioned before about the time when you got in touch to see if there was any work, and it was kind of like the synchronicity of that time and where I was at that time with thinking, really need to start thinking about the music. Where on earth do you find like like I had no idea where to find, and if I'd like found a musician, like how you have to trust sometimes that those things. I mean, it's so beautiful when it happens that way. It's such a gift,
Mm.
such a moment of sitting back and like really feeling that sense of safety and like we are being held by something here because
Mm.
the difference between thinking, okay, we really need to find a musician, right? Let's look on, I don't know, like online, or let's put
Yeah,
up
yeah.
an advert and like, how to find someone with the right amount of experience and the right kind of like the right person, um, versus just getting a message one day and going, okay, well, it was such a gift. Like the timing of all of it, the synchronicity of the timing was always just, it was always so
Mm.
lovely. And then the experience of writing the tree journeys, and I had all the same things you described, like the kind of roller coaster with it, with that creative process. And then you would send me a piece of music, and the joy of sitting back playing that piece of music. You'd sometimes send me like a taste of it first, and just the thrill and joy of opening up those files and listening is just one of like absolute high points of the whole of the ACER creative process. It was so lovely.
Mm.
And then we had, and I always loved everything you sent, it was just like you'd send your first
Yeah, yeah.
idea
Your
and I would love it.
enthusiasm was so helpful. Like, you're always so enthusiastic. I was like, I wonder what Rod was thinking. He was like, oh my god, I love it. was like,
But
yeah,
I
cool.
really did.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, and if I ever hadn't, I would have said it. But it was like your first idea was always just like absolutely just perfect. And
Right.
there was a whole other layer of it as well, which was that once you'd created so I would the tree journey would be written. I would send you either the kind of like the broad landscape or the actual kind of like script of the tree journey. You would create it, and then I would take the file that you'd created, and often, yeah, you just created in one flow, like one flow that just kind of like came to you and you just created. And I would take it to Sharif Heshizime, who is a very talented sound engineer, and he does mixing and mastering of like albums amongst being also a musician and a DJ himself. And um, he is an artist that has worked with John Hopkins for a very long time. They've worked together on some absolutely exquisite music creation. So I knew that he was like absolutely like the right person to like bring it all out in the best way and record it in such a
Mm,
way that so I would take your music file and I would go to Sharif's studio, and um I would record the audio, like reading out the tree journey. And then we had these, we just started looking forward to them so much because every time what happened is I would sit in the sound booth, record the tree journey, and then we would get the audio file of my like narrative and your music file, and we would put them together on his big computer screen and press play and listen to the audio narrative against your music. And we used to just like look at each other going like, what? Because
mm.
there were all these funny little moments where like the narrative would say something and then there'd be like a little sparkle or a boom or a this or a that or and it was just like the weaving together of those things. We always used to sit there and just say, this is one of those times where we know that we are experiencing a flow state that is much bigger than us and is like
Mm,
hard to get your head around, but just an absolute gift to experience. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, it's really been strung together by synchronicities and faith. I feel like the whole thing, and it's yeah, there's been so many mad matching moments.
Absolutely. Like just really, yeah, it's been one of the kind of areas of my life where I've most understood synchronicity actually. I'm like, oh, when I think about like what is it? I'm like, oh yeah, it's like it's that. It's sitting in the studio and hearing the sounds that couldn't have been planned, even if we'd sat down and said like, okay, you have to do this then and this then and even if we'd micromanaged every single like bar of your music, like we could never have got the alignment right in the same way that happened without any like just naturally.
Yeah, yeah, that's literal synchronization, isn't it?
Yes,
The vocal and the music are literally synced, like without planning it.
yes.
Synchronicity in synchronicity. It's good. Yeah.
Yes. Like, yes, I love that. It's like, yes, synchronizing in on so many different levels in a really beautiful way. So, yeah, and I think it's nice to share that with people because then maybe when they listen to the Tree Journeys, it brings a whole level of like knowing the kind of way
Mm,
that they came about.
mm. Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Mm,
So tell us a bit now, Finn, about so I mean, people in the ACER community that have listened to your Tree Journeys all the way through and have um, become like really kind of familiar with your music. You have a lot of fans in our community. There's a lot of
mm,
people who just listen to your music when they yeah, on your website there's a piece of music called Dusk and a piece of music called Dawn.
mm,
And we do use those sometimes within ACER. That was one of our kind of collaborations, but people may not know about it. It's not something that like we direct people to particularly, but I know that a lot of people have like found it from your website and that
mm.
we only haven't directed them there just because we haven't, I don't know, we should find a place to say about it, but people have found it just independently, and I've heard a couple of people say how that music just provides a really beautiful like space if you're feeling tired or stressed or you just need to be held by nature because of course your music
Mm,
has so much beautiful, you weave so many beautiful nature sounds in. So will you
mm.
tell us a bit about those pieces of music, because I think people might not know about them, and anyone can find them because they're on your website.
Oh, Dusk and Dawn. Yeah, I mean, I wrote them for you guys, didn't I? But it was kind of the arrangement was that I could kind of put them out there, which I guess
Yeah.
is nice also because, as you say, then they're a little bit of a bridge like back into ACER as well. Um, I don't have much to say about them. I'd go and listen to them. Like I would also say if people listen on Spotify as well, like the website's good to have, I suppose, but it's kind of a bit dry, I think. Like on Spotify, you can hear those tracks, and I released quite a lot more over winter, and they
Mm.
kind of range. I released like a couple of solo guitar pieces. I released an old kind of Journey track called Ripples, which was a very very first thing that I wrote for someone else like years, like 6 7 years ago. And then I wrote an EP about a slug that eats oranges under the full moon, which is a true story because slugs apparently love eating oranges, especially under the full moon. That's the one I wrote a brief for. I was trying
Yes.
to think of something to write, and I was thinking to my partner, and I was like, "What should I write about?" She was like, "Why don't you write about the slugs eating oranges under the moon?" And I was like, "Maybe you can write me a little story." So she kind of wrote me this small story, and then I wrote that piece to it, inspired by the whole ACER process, actually. So, um, yeah, they're all kind of nature inspired as well. So have a listen on Spotify. And is it worth mentioning Substack as well?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I also have been writing a Substack. I basically just have this inner resistance to getting social media, which is probably like it's just like everyone just thinks I'm a bit mental that I won't get an Instagram to promote my music. And I mean, maybe I'll give in and get one, but I'm trying like all these other alternative ways of promoting before I do that. And one of them was to start writing a Substack, which I feel it's this nice kind of bridge. You can get in a little bit more depth with a Substack. It's not as addictive as an application as Instagram. And I don't know, I feel like the engagement can maybe has a little bit more depth to it, even though it's a bit more limited. So I think it's just finnpetcher.substack.com. And I put up new music there and little live videos and just anything like a kind of musical sketchbook. And I've been really kind of enjoying writing that as well. So I've got the website, the Spotify, and my Substack, and it's all just Finn Petcher.
Mhm.
But I
That's
hope people enjoy it, what they hear. Yeah.
Petcher. We'll put links out with this recording. The Finnpetcher. And I had something I was going to ask you, and then I just completely forgot it. Oh yeah. So just to say to anybody listening, so if anybody, well, I mean, we haven't talked. You've talked a bit about your guitar, but I haven't reflected so much on that with you. But your guitar playing is absolutely. I mean, it's just absolutely astoundingly beautiful. And I think yes, this is what I wanted to say earlier as well. Just in terms of like what you brought to the ACER music, it's you had the precise experience, like even though you hadn't done that kind of composing before, because you had been playing in ceremonies for years, you had such a deep understanding of psychedelic journeys and the emotion of that state and the music as medicine and the music as kind of transporting you, the music as weaving parts of yourself together and just how important it is. So because you had had that experience with the plant medicine community and playing in ceremony, I think it was sitar. Did you do guitar as well sometimes as well, or was it always?
Yeah, yeah. Mostly guitar, like, yeah, mostly guitar.
Yeah, because that really, and obviously you play lots of guitar in the tree journeys as well, which is just beautiful. I mean, some of those parts of the journeys where it's just your quite simple, beautiful classical guitar playing, it's such a soothing, nurturing feeling and
Mm.
place to be. So, yeah, I was just going to say to anybody listening, if you're linked in any way to something that needs music, whether it's a kind of, online something or other, whether it's a retreat center, whether it's this like your Finn's classical guitar playing, but also just music creation is extraordinary. So like get in touch because it sounds like this is a good time for people to get in touch because you have your land.
Mm.
You've been doing a lot of traveling, but now you're going to be putting down some roots and coming back to creativity and music for a while. So this is the best time to catch you.
Yeah, totally. I'm totally available. And for anything, anything, collaboration, things to do with music, whatever they are. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm very available, and I really love it. Yeah, and I'm very inspired. This conversation as well, making me feel like I want to just go and start making music.
Yes.
Um,
Well, I really hope we're going to have another tree journey really soon. Yeah, there's some bubbling up, and community members have been asking for a few different ones, and actually people have been asking, and we won't talk about this too much, but like I'll just leave this little plant this little seed with you, Finn, and with anybody listening, because I think it's something that would be good, is a tree journey or one of your journeys, one of our kind of collaboration journeys for when people have had medicine and they're waiting for the medicine to kick in. So
Mm.
usually these tree journeys in ACER people do to prepare for experiences or to integrate experiences, but this would be something that people have actually on the ceremony day, which
Hmm.
is this something that people have been asking for, and I think it could be lovely. So let's let that percolate and see
Mm.
what
Mm.
we could do.
Yeah, it's a very poised moment, that, isn't it, where you're waiting.
Yeah, it can be quite anxious. Like you can feel really quite anxious, and there is,
Definitely.
if people are doing this, we have a lot of people in our community who are now kind of like in places where they can do this in quite flexible ways. It's, we have a lot of our community in America and Australia in places where it's actually been legalized or decriminalized. And there's lots of kind of flexibility of the way it's being used, which is great, it's beyond the kind of, you know, clinical trial or retreat center with a very specific kind of approach to music. People can create their own kind of musical styles. And I think often people work with playlists, but to have a particular piece of music that's bespokely created to soothe you into that space and welcome you into the medicine space and help you feel safe before
Hmm.
kind of more, the playlist begins, I think would be lovely.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I love the idea. I'd love to do that.
Well, I can't wait. I cannot wait for our next collaboration, Finn. I really, yeah, it's got me
Me
all
too.
well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's
Well,
make it
hopefully we'll see
happen.
you soon. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, amazing. And just such a huge thank you. We will, there will be more. Yes, we also have an inspiration for thinking more about, yeah, because you've created so much music and there are various ideas for bringing it more into the community, so that's an ongoing conversation. So I said essentially people can expect to hear more, I think, from you as well in the coming time. And yeah, just a huge massive thank you on behalf of all of us for
Mm.
really holding us through our difficult moments, our
Mm.
that your music is always there, and it's been an absolute balm and
Mm.
sanctuary for now hundreds of people. So, and me.
Thanks. Yeah, yeah. What an honor. What a beautiful thing to say. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having me today. Thanks for trusting I could do something like this. I was a bit
Oh,
nervous at the beginning, but I'm feeling good now. Yeah.
I want to do it all over again soon. And yeah, Finn, thank you so much for today.
Thanks, Roz. Yeah.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone,
everybody.
for listening, and see you soon.
See you soon. Bye.